The courtroom was packed, every seat filled, and the air was thick with tension. Lawyers whispered, pens scratched against paper, and the judge's gavel sat silently, a symbol of order that was about to be shattered. At the center of it all stood Angela Carter, a black woman with calm, steady eyes, clutching a folder tightly in her hands. Across from her, Officer Brent McAllister, a towering figure in his crisp uniform, was about to testify. Angela's voice was clear but respectful as she questioned McAllister's account. "Officer, you stated I resisted arrest. But isn't it true I repeatedly asked, what did I do wrong, before you laid hands on me?" McAllister's jaw clenched. "You were being aggressive," he snapped, his voice rising. Angela didn't flinch. Instead, she reached into her folder and pulled out a small device. "I have a recording," she said, her voice cutting through the murmurs in the gallery. "Would you like to hear it?" McAllister's face darkened. "You're trying to twist the truth," he shouted. The judge leaned forward, a warning on his lips, but it was too late. McAllister's boots pounded across the courtroom floor. His hand swung out, an open palm crashing against Angela's cheek. Gasps echoed. A woman in the back screamed. The judge's gavel slammed down, "Order! Order in this court!" But Angela didn't fall. She stood tall, eyes locked on McAllister, her cheek red but her voice steady. "Thank you, Officer McAllister," she said calmly. "Now everyone knows the truth." The room was frozen. The judge's face was pale. McAllister was breathing heavily, realizing the horror of what he'd done, but for Angela, this was just the beginning. The courtroom was gripped by an eerie, suffocating silence. Even the judge, a man known for his iron-fisted control over his courtroom, seemed momentarily stunned. Officer McAllister stood there, his chest rising and falling rapidly, his hands still trembling from the impact. Angela's cheek was red, but her expression remained calm, defiant, a look that shattered McAllister's illusion of control. "Bailiff." Judge Harper's voice thundered, breaking the trance. "Restrain Officer McAllister immediately." Two bailiffs sprang into action, their shoes clapping against the polished floor. McAllister's shock turned to panic. "Wait, she provoked me," he shouted, trying to back away, but the bailiffs were faster, seizing his arms. "Remove him from my courtroom," the judge ordered. The officers began dragging McAllister toward the exit, his protests now desperate, his voice a twisted mix of rage and fear. "She's lying. She's manipulating this," he yelled, but his words were swallowed by the murmurs rising from the gallery. Angela remained rooted to the spot, her fingers gently brushing her cheek, feeling the sting but not letting it control her. A young woman in the front row whispered, "Did that really just happen?" Her companion nodded, eyes wide with disbelief. Judge Harper leaned forward, adjusting his glasses, his gaze fixed on Angela. "Ms. Carter," he said, his voice steadier now, "are you able to continue?" Angela nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. I only need 4 minutes." The judge's eyebrow arched. 4 minutes? Angela's gaze was unwavering. 4 minutes is all it will take for the truth to be clear. A ripple of curiosity swept through the room. Journalists scribbled furiously, cameras shifted focus, and every eye locked onto Angela. She had their attention, but she also had something else, proof. The heavy wooden doors slammed shut behind Officer McAllister, his muffled protests fading down the hallway. Inside the courtroom, an electric tension filled the air, every breath a silent question: what would Angela do next? The judge's gavel struck once, demanding order, but it wasn't chaos that threatened now, it was the truth, poised like a blade. Angela adjusted her posture, her calm eyes sweeping the room. She looked at the jury, 12 faces now leaning forward, drawn to her like iron to a magnet. "Your Honor," she began, her voice smooth but firm, "I request permission to continue my testimony." Judge Harper's gaze softened slightly. "Granted. But you said you needed 4 minutes. Use them wisely." Angela reached into her folder, her fingers brushing past neatly arranged documents, a USB drive, and a small recorder. Everything I'm about to present is factual, recorded, and documented. No opinions, just proof. She lifted the recorder. This is the audio from the night Officer McAllister arrested me. He claimed I was resisting arrest, being aggressive. Her thumb pressed play, and the room was filled with the crackling sound of that night. McAllister's voice, rough and authoritative, barked, "Stop resisting." But Angela's voice was calm, pleading, "What did I do wrong? Please tell me." "I'm not resisting." Gasps echoed in the gallery. Some jurors exchanged looks, whispers slipping between them. Angela paused the audio. "You heard me ask. You heard him lie." She pulled out a photograph next, a close-up of her wrists, bruised and raw. "This is what his reasonable force left me with." Angela's voice grew sharper, her confidence unshakable. "Officer McAllister didn't just lose control today. He's always been this way. I can prove it." The judge leaned forward, his interest now a palpable force. The jury was riveted. For Angela, it wasn't just a testimony, it was a reckoning. Angela's calm demeanor was like a storm gathering force, each word she spoke a bolt of lightning cutting through the darkness. The jury leaned forward, caught between disbelief and shock. Judge Harper's gaze never left her. Angela knew she had 4 minutes, but she didn't need drama, just the truth. "This isn't the first time Officer McAllister has abused his power," Angela declared, holding up a stack of documents. "These are official complaints filed against him over the past 5 years. 12 complaints, all dismissed, all silenced." She stepped closer to the jury box, letting the papers fan out, all from women mostly black and Latina who had no proof. "But I do." She pressed play on the recorder again. A young woman's voice echoed through the courtroom. "He pulled me over for a broken taillight. But then he searched my car, called me a liar, and threatened to arrest me if I didn't show him some respect." Angela's voice cut through the murmurs. "This woman reported him, nothing happened." She pulled out another document, an internal memo. "This is from the police department internal review. Officer McAllister's actions were labeled within protocol, but the women he targeted never felt protected, they felt preyed upon." Angela shifted, her gaze piercing. "Officer McAllister has always counted on fear, on women staying silent, but today, I'm speaking not just for myself, but for them." A few members of the jury exchanged glances, their faces shifting from skepticism to anger. The gallery was a sea of whispers now, some even covering their mouths in shock. Angela took a breath. "Your Honor, these are not just accusations. They are patterns, patterns he thought would stay buried. But I'm here to bring them into the light." Judge Harper leaned forward, his expression serious. "Continue, Ms. Carter. You have their attention." Angela's lips tightened into a thin line. "Oh, I'm just getting started." Angela's voice remained steady, but her words hit like a sledgehammer. Officer McAllister's record is clean on paper, but only because he had help. His misconduct was covered up, complaints quietly dismissed. She held up another document. "This is an email from his supervisor. Let's not make a big deal out of this one. Every complaint, every report, buried." A woman in the gallery gasped, a sound quickly muffled. Angela continued, unrelenting. "The victims who came forward were ignored, intimidated, or shamed into silence. But they aren't silent anymore." She looked at the jury, locking eyes with each of them. "Because I brought them with me." Angela tapped her folder, and one by one, she displayed statements from other women, signed, dated, each one a story of fear and intimidation. Lisa Ramirez, pulled over for a random check, was forced to step out of her car while McAllister searched her vehicle without cause. Denise Williams, stopped for jaywalking, but ended up pinned against a wall for acting suspicious. The jury's eyes widened, anger replacing doubt. Judge Harper leaned forward, his expression tense. "Ms. Carter, do you have direct evidence?" Angela smiled, calm but fierce. "Yes, Your Honor. I have audio. I have their voices." She held up the recorder, pressing play. The courtroom filled with the nervous, trembling voices of women recounting their encounters with McAllister, each voice a nail in his coffin, but it doesn't stop there, Angela declared, her voice rising. I also have a recording of Officer McAllister speaking with his colleagues, laughing about how, no one believes them anyway. She clicked play again, and the room froze. McAllister's voice came through, clear and mocking. These girls think they can complain. Who's gonna believe them over me? Judge Harper's gavel struck sharply. Silence in the court. But silence was impossible. The truth was out, and it was deafening. The courtroom was a pressure cooker ready to explode. Angela's calm yet relentless exposure of McAllister's secrets had peeled away his mask. His face, once smug and defiant, was now pale and sweating. He shifted in his seat, hands gripping the edge of the table so tightly his knuckles turned white. Angela's voice remained a steady force. Officer McAllister counted on fear to keep his victim silent. But fear is a weapon that loses power in the light of truth. She turned to the judge. Your Honor, I request that we hear from one of the victims directly. Judge Harper hesitated, then nodded. Proceed. The doors at the back of the courtroom opened, and a young woman stepped forward, her hands shaking slightly, but her face set with determination. My name is Lisa Ramirez, she announced, her voice stronger than she looked. Officer McAllister stopped me last year, told me I was acting suspicious. He searched my car without asking and then told me to keep quiet if I knew what was good for me. McAllister stood abruptly. Objection, Your Honor. Sit down, Officer McAllister. Judge Harper's voice cut through the room. You will have your turn. Angela walked to Lisa's side. Did you file a complaint, Lisa? I did. Lisa's voice wavered, but they told me it was under review. I never heard back. Angela nodded, then gestured to the folder on the evidence table. Lisa's complaint is right here. Marked as resolved. With no further action taken, another woman stood from the gallery. He pulled me over too. Said I was loitering. I was just waiting for my sister. Angela turned, recognizing the momentum. If there are others here who have been silenced, now is your chance. One by one, 3 more women stood, their voices filling the room, each story an echo of the last. McAllister's lawyer leaned in, whispering urgently, but McAllister's gaze stayed fixed on the ground. His fortress of intimidation was crumbling. Angela stepped forward. This isn't just a trial. It's a reckoning. Angela's words reverberated in the courtroom, each one sinking deeper into the minds of those present. The tension in the air thickened, almost palpable. Officer McAllister sat rigid in his chair, his bravado now shattered, replaced by a look of pure desperation. His lawyer, a seasoned defense attorney, stood up to object once again, but this time, the judge did not entertain it. Enough, Judge Harper declared, his voice cutting through the chaos. Officer McAllister, your repeated attempts to silence these women will not go unnoticed. Angela turned back to face McAllister. You spent your career hiding behind your badge, but now, the truth is coming to light. You thought you could get away with this for years, but no more. McAllister's eyes darted nervously around the room, but there was nowhere left to hide. Angela had done what no one thought possible. She had given a voice to those he had victimized, and she was not backing down. But Angela wasn't finished. She reached into her bag and pulled out a set of photographs, clear, damning evidence of McAllister's abuse of power. These photos, Your Honor, show Officer McAllister in a compromising position with one of the victims. She slammed the pictures down on the table, each photo a stark reminder of his corruption. The room fell silent as the images sank in. McAllister's face twisted in shock, disbelief, and fear, and for the first time, it seemed like the weight of his actions was bearing down on him. You can't deny this anymore, Officer McAllister, Angela said, her voice steady but filled with conviction. Your days of abusing your position are over. The judge looked at McAllister coldly. I think we have heard enough. The courtroom remained eerily silent as the weight of Angela's words hung in the air. Officer McAllister's attorney stood, looking flustered, knowing there was little left to defend. McAllister, visibly sweating, squirmed in his seat, realizing the walls were closing in around him. Angela's focus never wavered. She had come here for justice, not to seek revenge. She knew that exposing the truth was the only way to stop McAllister from ever harming another person. Her heart beat faster as she prepared to deliver the final blow. "Your Honor," Angela began, standing tall and unwavering, "this case is not just about a slap. It's about the countless lives Officer McAllister has ruined over the years, his abuse of power, his disregard for human dignity. It all culminated in one terrible act in that courtroom." She paused, letting her words sink in. Angela took a breath and continued, "But it's not just his actions that are at fault, it's the system that allowed him to thrive for so long. The system that ignored his behavior, the system that protected him. Today, that system begins to change." She turned toward the gallery where people had gathered in support. Her voice rang with empowerment. "This is bigger than me. This is about all of us, the victims, the families, and the communities who've suffered. We have been silent for too long, and today, we break that silence." The judge nodded slowly, a rare expression of approval on his face. He turned toward McAllister. "Officer McAllister, your actions will not go unpunished. You will answer for every violation of justice, for every life you've harmed." McAllister's face drained of color, his body slumped as if the weight of his years of lies and corruption had finally caught up to him. The courtroom erupted into whispers. The case had taken a turn no one expected. The judge's gavel echoed throughout the courtroom, signaling the beginning of McAllister's reckoning. There was an undeniable sense of satisfaction in the air, a feeling that justice had finally been served. Angela, standing tall in the witness box, allowed herself a moment to breathe. Her heart still raced, but the weight she had carried for so long was starting to lift. McAllister, once so confident, was now facing the full extent of his actions. His attorney was fumbling, trying to salvage something from this disaster, but it was clear there was no way out. The jury had seen through his lies, and the public sentiment had turned sharply against him. Angela had been the key to unraveling his empire of deceit, and now it was all falling apart. The judge addressed the court once more, his voice firm. "Officer McAllister, for your abuse of power, for your violent actions against an innocent woman, and for your corruption within the force, I hereby sentence you to prison. May this be a lesson to those who believe they are above the law." Angela's family, friends, and supporters who had gathered in the courtroom erupted into applause, but Angela remained calm. This was not a victory to be celebrated with fanfare. For her, it was a necessary step in the fight for a more just world. She glanced toward McAllister, who was now being handcuffed and led away. His once proud stance was now that of a broken man, and the bitter irony was not lost on her. She had come into this fight as a victim, but now, she was leaving as a beacon of hope for those who had suffered in silence. The days that followed the trial felt surreal to Angela. The world had changed overnight, and so had she. She was no longer just a victim of injustice, she had become a symbol of strength and resilience. Her case made headlines across the country, inspiring countless people who had experienced similar struggles. Angela received messages from all over the nation, women and men alike, thanking her for standing up to the system, for showing them that one voice could make a difference. However, despite the overwhelming support, the emotional toll of the ordeal was not easy to shake. The scars of the past, the trauma of what she had endured, still lingered beneath her newfound courage. It wasn't easy to forget the humiliations, the threats, and the injustice she had faced. But with each message of gratitude, each moment of recognition, Angela began to heal. Slowly but surely, the weight that had crushed her for so long began to lift. As the media frenzy surrounding the case died down, Angela found herself reflecting on the journey. She realized that this victory was only a small piece of the larger fight for equality and justice. McAllister's punishment was just one battle won, but the war was far from over. There were still countless others like her, victims of systemic racism, corruption, and abuse. She knew her work had only just begun. Angela began speaking at rallies, sharing her story, and becoming a voice for the voiceless. With each step, she was reclaiming more of her power, turning her pain into purpose. Her legacy wasn't just about what she had done for herself, but for those who would come after her. the fight for justice never truly ends, but Angela had found the strength to be a warrior in it. If Angela's story inspired you, don't just sit back, take action. Share this video with your friends, leave a comment below about how you've overcome adversity, and subscribe to stay updated on powerful stories that fight for justice and change. Remember, your voice matters. Together, we can make a difference. Stay strong, stay resilient, and let's continue to stand up for what's right.